Morning, folks. How are we all today? You'll see I've got a comment up here already this morning. I'll address that in a second because it was something I wanted to address this morning. Because we're a year and a month out for the election, and I've already been dragged into a couple of conversations that I don't really want to get into. But as the conversation has come up, I want to point out a few things that people don't quite realise. But let's get this underway first. Let's get Facebook on board. And then we'll get to pointing out the thing that I think that a lot of people are missing at the moment. Okay, that's Facebook made public. I can shut that down. Save on the bandwidth. Right, good morning, folks. Indy Truck Davy out the truck and at home in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it's overcast, dry, 11 degrees, no bad for this time of year. That's what the weather's like here in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. If you want to know what the weather's like where you are, look out your own bloody window. Okay, and I hear it's fine in Ayrshire this morning. Right, now, folks, a year and a month out from the election, and I've already been dragged into a couple of conversations about how to vote. SNP1 Alpha 2, SNP1 Green 2, SNP1 SNP2. Now, it's not a conversation I want to get into. On the Alpha Party, there's only one poll showing they're going to actually do anything, the rest of them no polling at all. So if you're going to split your vote, I would suggest you split it towards a party with a track record of actually getting elected, but I'm not going to tell you how to vote. But I will quote the wee ginger Doug, Paul Kavanagh, the TNT show this week. While all these discussions are going on, we know what worked the last time, in 2011. We know what worked that time. But I'm not telling you how to vote. But when you go into that polling booth next May, one thing to bear in mind before you tick the box or put your cross in the boxes, not just that we know what worked the last time, the one thing that all these people that are advocating splitting the vote has forgotten, and I'm not saying whether they're right or whether they're wrong. What I will say is, what they all seem to have forgotten is, we have a parliament with a pro-independence majority. All this nonsense about maximise the pro-independence MSPs. Fine, great. It'll just make a Westminster veto on Scottish laws easier. Because we'll get the laws through the Parliament easier before Westminster vetoes them. But the other thing to remember, and it's the elephant in the room that all these people advocating voting this way and voting that way seem to have forgotten, that is that we do have a pro-independence majority Parliament. Westminster doesn't recognise it. Westminster only recognises an SNP majority. So unless there's 69 MSPs along that road in Holyrood, it doesn't matter if we put 110 pro-independence MSPs in there. If the majority of them, 69 of them, the majority in the Parliament, are not SNP, Westminster will not recognise it. We know that to be a fact because we have a pro-independence majority in the Parliament, and when Nicola Sturgeon asked for a Section 30 order, she was told you don't have a majority. Some of the people that voted Green might not have been voting for independence. Some of the people voting SNP might not have been voting for independence. I deal in facts, folks. Fact is, we know how it worked in 2011. And fact is, they don't recognise anything but an SNP majority. So bear that in mind before you go into the polling booth. No, I'm no advocating voting one way or another. That's up to you and your conscience. But we know what works. And we know that they don't recognise anything but an SNP majority. We have a pro-independence majority parliament at the moment. They don't recognise it. We could put 110 MSPs in there. 67 for the SNP, no enough. Say try it then, make up the rest of them for the Greens, the Alpha Party, the ISP. You can make up the rest of that number all you want. If there's not going to be a majority of SNP MPs in that MSPs in that Parliament, Westminster is not going to recognise it. That's a fact we already know to be true. And I like to deal in facts where I can. Speculation I'll leave to David. Facts I do myself. Now, as I say, I'm not getting involved in this conversation anymore. As David and I were talking about, cometh the hour, cometh the man. But it's the bit in the middle of the void where you wait in the man coming. That's where all the nonsense starts and people start to forget reality. And the reality is we have a pro-independence majority in that Parliament and it's not recognised. What makes anybody think they're going to recognise an increased number of pro-independence MSPs if there isn't a majority of SNP MSPs? Now, I had to point that out, folks, because in all the discussions I've seen and all the discussions I've had, that one elephant in the room has been left out of that discussion, and that is that we already have a pro-independence majority in our Parliament. It's not recognised. It will only be recognised when it is a pro-independence majority, which is SNP. How you go about thinking is the right way to achieve the maximum number or the majority number of SNP MSPs in that Parliament, that's up to you. But just don't forget the facts that are in front of our faces. We have a pro-independence majority Parliament. It is not recognised because it's not SNP. Simple as that. Now that that elephant in the room has been brought out into the daylight for people to think about in these discussions, because these discussions will go on for the next 12 months. But while you're in these discussions, when the conversation's coming up and you disagree or agree with the people you're talking to, remember that one fact. One fact. The one fact is that they only recognise an SNP majority. Because we know that to be true. Because we already have a pro-independence Parliament and it's not being recognised. Okay. And as for class action, Davies still playing by Westminster's rules. Davies no in the Parliament. You need to tell that to Mr. Swinney. Class action. Now on to this bit here with Leslie Riddoch being told there's a big announcement made for the SNP, but you've had April's after that care before. Well, here's the thing, Julie. It's still the only fucking care in town. And it's the only one that the Westminster Parliament will recognise. Well, we'll wait and see what the big announcement is, shall we? And as I say, class action, it's no me you want to tell you stop playing by Westminster rules. I'm not in the Parliament. I'm just a commentator on the news and on current affairs. But why have I got Larry the Cat marked up instead of class actions? Sorry about that, folks. Morning, Larry the Cat. Morning, Regan the Leak. Right. Now that we've got that out of the road and that the elephant's out in the daylight, let's get on with this. First up this morning we have a Scotsman. I'll put it up. SNP told stop wasting time amid gender policy review. Ministers can't give date for new guidance on as Starmer U-turns. Now this is Starmer's statement yesterday that he would accept the Supreme Court ruling, and we've got MSPs telling the SNP that they have to stop trying to give every single person in Scotland the same rights. Well, the answer is no. When it comes to demonising the people who advocate equal rights for everybody, then the moral decline is fucking accelerating. Anybody who doesn't think that any other human being should have the same rights as himself are no right-minded people. But this is fucking the slippery slope, and it started. Now the people who advocate giving everybody human rights, everybody equal rights, are being fucking demonised. And apparently Kimmy Badenoch was telling Starmer yesterday to clamp down on transgender activists and on trans rights. Folks, this is fucking horrifying. This is fucking horrifying. And if you don't recognise that this is how it starts, then you've got a problem. Because they start with the trans rights, and we did nothing. Coming for the disabled, we did nothing because we're no disabled. Now, we're no doing that, folks. That's 1930s fucking Germany. We're no doing that. Either everybody has the same rights, or nobody has any fucking rights. That's how it works. There's something else coming up in a minute in the press, which is along the same lines. But we'll get there. Next up with the Daily Field. Let's put this one up. Now say sorry to all women for trans chaos. SNP accept ruling from UK's top court. No plans to bring back toxic gender bill. No fucking toxic at all. But no apology as Sweeney's urged. There's nothing to apologise for. And as for this SNP gender nonsense, the GRR bill, folks, that was passed in the Scottish Parliament and vetoed by Westminster, it was passed by the whole Parliament. In fact, one of the very guys who's turned on this legislation actually whipped his fucking party into voting for it, and that is Anna Sarwar. He whipped the Labour Party into voting the gender recognition of the GRR through. The gender recognition bill. He whipped the Labour Party into voting for it. The Lib Dems freely voted for it. The Greens freely voted for it. The SNP voted for it. And a handful of Tories voted for it and all. So this nonsense about SNPs and what the SNP wanting to give equal rights to everybody. No, actually it was a Parliament. The whole fucking Parliament. And to see these fucking unionists now turn around and blame the SNP for something they happily participated in. That's the problem with fucking devolution. But apologise, no. As for no plans to bring back toxic gender bill, bring it fucking back. Put it through, and as class action says, tell them to fuck off. Our Parliament passed it, it stands. End of fucking story. And if Big Ears doesn't want to sign it into their laws, so fucking what? Bring it to me, I'll sign it into law. I'm a sovereign. I'm a sovereign Scot. They've no fucking right vetoing laws made in our land. Next up, we've the Rancid, and it goes on. A crime story. Dubai Kingpin sets £100,000 bounty. Gang war, Mr. Big wants rivals dead. Well, that's not much of a surprise, is it? That's not much of a surprise at all. Next up, we have the Herald, and the Herald's done the wise thing. It's time to fuck away from the gender stuff. But we'll put the Herald up. Local tax on second homes may double in tourism hotspots. Now, folks, this is about trying to bring more family homes back into use. Second homes lie empty most of the time. They're just a trapping, a jewellery. The people who own them would be cheaper just hiring a hotel for a hotel room for a week, fortnight, whatever amount of time it is they spend in that particular area a year, as opposed to having perfectly good housing sitting empty all year round. So the idea is to double the council tax on these second homes in the hope that it will bring more housing stock into availability for people to live in full time. So I am for it. Let's slap the tax on those who have their vanity homes so that people who need a home can get one. There we go. That's my view on it anyway. Now, next up, we have the loony rag, the Express. We'll put that up. Symbolism on show as Francis rests. Now, I've looked at that picture, I'm not quite sure what that means. And world leaders prepare for Pope's funeral. Well, that's normally what happens when a Pope dies. And apparently Reeves can't blame Trump for UK mess. You hear that, Rachel? She's right. If you want to know who's responsible for the mess the UK is in, then what we have to do is hold a mirror up to the English and Welsh voters who voted for Brexit. Because you can't blame the politicians. You can't blame them. They just come up with the stupid idea of having the EU referendum. The people of Scotland and Northern Ireland looked at it and went, don't be fucking stupid. It's our biggest trading partner. The people in England and Wales, they were talking about sovereignty and fucking borders when they live in a monarchy, so they're no fucking sovereign, for a start. They're subjects. Subjects talking about sovereignty. Fuck. And borders. The borders are leaking like a fucking sieve, even more than they were in Europe. And no Dublin agreement to allow people to be returned to mainland Europe. But if you want to know who is to blame for the UK mess, then the very fact is it was the voters in England and Wales who voted for Brexit. Simple as that. As I say, the people in Northern Ireland and Scotland looked at it and went, that's a fucking daft idea. No, but the people in England and Wales were talking about borders and sovereignty. The sovereignty bit's the bit that fucking baffles me. They live in a monarchy. They live in a monarchy, for fuck's sake. Charles is sovereign. You are subject. It's no difficult. It's the principle of a monarchy. Wow. So no, you can't blame Trump. He's just adding to the misery that was created by the people of England and Wales when they were voting for sovereignty and fucking border control. Fucking subjects voting for sovereignty. What the fuck? Oofed. Maybe it's just me, Maybe it's just me that understands the constitutional arrangement of the country next door. It would appear the people who live in the country next door don't understand their own constitutional arrangements. The mind boggles. The mind boggles. And this is where we talk about the decline, the economic decline of the West, the moral decline of the West, and the intellectual decline of the West. Number 3 applies to the idea that subjects were voting for sovereignty. That's the intellectual decline we're talking about. When the people next door don't actually understand their own constitutional arrangements. The mind fucking boggles. The mind boggles. How do we leave this dysfunctional union? Thatcher and Cook class action, thank you. I've said it myself. We know the way out. The main election going forward now is the 2029 election, and convincing our politicians and our political parties to make it clear in their manifestos that if they get a majority of MPs, they'll dissolve the union. Right, now let's move on, shall we? What was that one? Was that the Express? Aye. What's the Sun go for this morning? Well, the Sun goes in the celebrity story. And it has Freddie's ex-treasure sale angers family. Sister buys back 3 million of memorabilia. It's a kind of tragic. So apparently, Freddie Mercury's ex-partner is selling off some of his belongings. Obviously needs money. And to prevent that from happening, the family stepped in and gave the ex-partner 3 million quid for the belongings. Yeah, well, 3 million, eh? Not a bad number. Right, let's move on. We've got the Telegraph next. What's the Telegraph got for us this morning? Let's put her up. Trump to let Putin keep seized land. Trump to let Putin keep seized land of someone else's land. Is that just me or does it not feel right? That 2 of the 3 superpowers are divvying up somebody else's country. This is also the start of a slippery slope. Mental. Absolutely mental. So Zelensky tell, you just need to give up what Russia's already taken and they'll stop taking for here. Who believes that nonsense? Keep Putin a couple of years to get back on his feet and his forces to get back on their feet and they'll be on the march again. This has to be stopped now. Because it ain't saving no lives. Anyway, the Times has got a cracker for us this morning, folks. Let's have a look at it. What's the Times got this morning? SAS veterans being unjustly hounded over troubles services. No, I'm sorry. If they did something illegal, I don't give a fuck if they're special air service. I don't give a fuck what section of the military they were in. If they were doing something illegal while they were in Northern Ireland, then they should be brought to justice for it. And I say that as an ex-serviceman. And the main headline, slave labour set back to Miliband's green goals. And that apparently is concerns over who's making Chinese solar panels. Slave labour. You know, yep, labour's still a wee bit cheaper in China than where it is here at the moment, but it's no slave labour anymore. And if you look at China, it's not a backwater anymore. It's probably one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world at this point in time. With their modern railways, their modern transport systems, their modern housing, their modern industrial areas. So I don't think slave labour is still a thing in China. I may be wrong. But this is nonsense. So apparently you have to stop buying Chinese solar panels because they're made by slave labour. I say, I don't know if slave labour still exists in China. But when you look at China today, it's a very modern looking place. And it looks as if they're bringing up the living standards of their people as their industrial revolution continues. Or is there industrial revolution, if you like. They're the manufacturers of the world now. That's the manufacturing hub of the whole planet at this point in time, the Far East, and especially China. Right, let's take that then. So with the Telegraph, the Times, what's up next? The National. The National's got plenty on the front page, actually. We'll go through it. We'll put it all. A busy front page, this one. And as Refugee Council Chief warns Labour, migrant crime week table plans dangerous. You're fucking right it is. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the trans rights things. So the trans have now been thrown under the bus. Their rights are fucking out the window. We've got Labour MPs telling trans ladies to use male toilets. We'll get to that a wee bit later. And But now it's clear the refugees are going to continue to get fucking hounded. And they already have minimum rights. But it is dangerous. Anyway, if you're going to put a league table up, you want to put up a league table of crime in England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and then drop it down the minorities within. And I bet you it's the white indigenous population in England, Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland who come out on the top of the table. But it's a fucking stupid idea. And mere demonising of people seeking refuge. Tell you, there's a moral decline on. And union not a priority for English voters. Let me translate that into fucking something politicians in England might understand. England for English independence is what that says. Less than half think it's important to keep the UK together. Survey finds Brexit matters more than links with Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. It's true. The people of England would like to stand on their own 2 feet. The politicians know that they can't afford it. But they could afford it, of course. Just take them a couple of years to adjust. To living off their own money rather than Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland's money. But basically that headline tells us that actually the English are looking to get out the union as well. Right. Here we've got David Dugan to tell us that the SNP are telling the Labour Party to work with Europe as opposed to pandering to Trump. And that's being said as the IMF cuts UK growth forecast. It's all fucking fantasy pie in the sky anyway. We're in an economic decline as well as a moral and intellectual decline. So apparently they've cut growth forecast to 1.1. Fucking pie in the sky. Nobody's getting any disposable income. The government's not investing. This economy's not growing anything or anywhere. A wee blip now and again when there's a festival where people will loosen their wallet a wee bit. So Christmas, Easter. But apart from that, this economy's not growing anywhere. And trans women should use male toilets, Labour Minister says. Let me complete that sentence for Labour Minister. Trans men to use women's toilets, Labour Minister says. Because if trans women have got to go to the gents, then trans men are going to have to go to the ladies. Either that, we have to create gender neutral toilet spaces. But it's a very, 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 very busy front page, that one. Very busy. That's a whole fucking programme that's on that front page. Wow. Right. Let's move on. Next up we have the Eye. This one's a fucking billion actually. This one's a cracker. Dash for cash, ISA. Savers scramble to lock in best rates before reforms hit. That's nonsense. Who the fuck's got any disposable income or any income that they can afford to lock away at this point in time in such a volatile world? And when the market's fucking crashing away there, I heard that. Absolute nonsense. Yeah. But hell, I suppose it's a wee bit different front page, isn't it? Right, next up we have The Guardian, which seems to be making a hell of a comeback here in Scotland. Are they trying to replace the Daily Rancid as the Labour fucking voice here in Scotland? Are they? Anyway, let's look see what The Guardian's got for us this morning, shall we? IMF blames Trump's tariff for major negative shock to world economy. Well, that's a fair statement. UK to host Ukraine talks amid Moscow speculation. And funeral of Pope to be held in the Vatican on Saturday. I dare say it will be on the television if you are religious and if you're of the Catholic faith and you want to watch the event. I'll not be tuning in myself. A, I'm not religious, and B, I don't watch the fucking telly. Right. So that's the Guardian. To say for some reason that seems to be showing up in the paper review more often here in Scotland. Right, next up, we've got the Metro. Now, the Metro's got an interesting one on it this morning. I haven't had a chance to look into it yet, but the gist of the story is unions claim ministers feared pilot success. Fair Acts trial derailed by government. Now, apparently there was going to be a trial on something similar to what we had here in Scotland, where you do away with peak rates, and the idea was to get people out their cars and onto public transport. But apparently it's been kiboshed by the Labour government, apparently, according to the trade unions. Why would that be? We get people out their cars, they'll lose the tax revenue, haven't they? They'll lose the money for the fuel that people put in. They'll lose the money for the road tax. And at this point in time, Rachel, for the accounts there, is desperate for every fucking penny she can get her hands on. Every penny she can get her hands on. So, apparently, they've kiboshed a real fair pilot because it would damage Rachel for the accounts revenue stream if people get rid of their cars and started getting on the trains again. So, there's a couple of streams of revenue. Right. Last up, of course, we have the Star. What's the Star got for us this morning? Well, the Star's got where is it? I've lost my pointer. That's what happens, you also bolt off your mouse. I'll get battery back in, folks. Right, Star, let's get it back up. Now I need to find the bolt off the mouse. I dropped that before it came on here. And the Star's got football fracas. Big boss gave me red card, says Lineker. Lineker was after 3 more years on Match of the Day, but Auntie wanted the 1.3 million a year presenter to leave. Yeah, Lineker's alright, but is he worth 1.35 million of taxpayers' money? Or licensed players' money? I don't know, that's for you people who decide. I don't watch it. Simple as that. All my screen time spent here. with you guys. Right, as I say, folks, we're a year out for the Scottish election. The debate on how to vote is underway. I'm fine with it. Alright? Don't message me and ask how I think you should vote. I'm not playing. I'm just going to say what I already know. And that is we have a pro-independence majority in the Parliament that's not recognised. So maximising pro-independence MSPs won't make a fucking difference if the majority, or 69, are no MSPs. Westminster's not paying attention. They're not interested. Okay? But I'm not telling anybody how to vote. Vote with your conscience. Vote how you think is the right way to vote in your area. But to quote the wee Ginger Dog in the TNT show, when he was being interviewed by John, we know what works. And we also know that they don't recognise a pro-independence parliament. They did recognise a pro-SNP majority parliament, but they don't recognise a pro-independence parliament because we have one of those right now. These two things are undisputable facts. We know what worked the last time, and we know that they don't recognise anything but an SNP majority. Okay, you guys have a nice day. And we'll be back tomorrow morning to do it all again. Thanks to anybody who made a contribution to the Food Bank Fund. Thanks to moderators for moderating. And thanks you guys for tuning in large numbers. But remember, folks, when you're in these debates, because we're going to have a lot of this debate going on, because we're in a void, and when you're in a void, you have all this sort of nonsense. There's no clear vision, no clear route. But when you're having these debates about how you're going to vote, remember, we already have a pro-independence majority in Parliament, and Westminster doesn't recognise it. Have a nice day.